Well, bam. Look at that shit, bro. I got me. Once more. Let's do it again. You know what that is? That's right. My motherfucking apartment keys, goddammit. We are officially part of the housed community now. So today, in preparation for moving in, I kind of had like a million side quests and things to get done before I actually got the keys. So the majority of the day was spent doing said side quests. What I'm basically trying to say is I didn't get any fucking painting done today because of said side quests. But again, we are going to rely on the bountiful archive of pre-recorded footage that I've got in my backpack. The painting that I'm going to be showing you guys is another one from the Brownie project show in Shanghai, and it's another one of the large cursed emojis. This is another, I think this is going to be the third. This is the third in the set, because I made 3 big ones that were they were exactly 6 feet in diameter, which is my height. So this is the third one. Of the 3, I would say this one is probably my second favorite. The first being likely the Brendan Fraser one, for obvious reasons, you know, old Benny, old Brenny. You gotta love Brenny Frey. And also, I think I just made an emotional connection to that painting because of how much I documented and presented here on YouTube, and how much of a, you know, production that one was. But even for its own sake, even just on its own terms, on merit alone, I like that painting a lot. It's really like the largest, no, it's not the largest Tondo I've ever done, but it's certainly the most rendered. The other ones I would say that I've made in the past were a bit more loose. If I find the example of a couple that I made, I'll throw them up here as well, and you guys can check them out. And some of them that I've made have been bigger. I think I've made a 7 or 8 foot Tondo before, back in like maybe 2017 or something. So this one wasn't exactly, you know, a new challenge or anything, but working with these cursed emojis it presents its own set of, you know, little difficulties and stuff when you're trying to compile images and kind of collage these things together, and trying to, I guess, maybe keep somewhat of a succinct, maybe aesthetic surface across them. And, you know, I didn't find that too difficult, honestly. You just throw on a yellow background and that's pretty much it. And then if there's the odd one that has maybe a different colored background, it just kind of stands in contrast to the group but still relates to it. So I wasn't really too worried about that. These paintings, though, they did come on the back of like a pretty hectic deadline. And the project went from being in a 2-person booth at the Nada Art Fair to just like a solo show in Shanghai, China. So that was like my mindset going from like one day to the next. Like, I'm just preparing a few pieces, I'm vibing with another artist, you know, to like now I'm carrying the fucking thing. And that was, you know, that was like a very fun challenge to rise to, and I really love that stuff. I love things where I'm kind of forced to work at the last minute, because I'm realizing that that's how I thrive. I kind of thrive on this last minute energy, and it really does a lot for me. It gets me going. So I'm on my way to the apartment right now, and I'm going to show you guys what's good there, and then after that, we're going to get into some goddamn painting, dude, and see how this piece goes. And one thing I wanted to mention just before I cut the video is that, hey, if you have any questions, like, or if there's anything that you want to see in these videos that I'm not putting on, dude, just comment. Like, let me know. I'm 100% like, I don't know what I was gonna say there, but I'm down for it. You know, I'm down to answer questions, and I think it would be very interesting if there's some new. I mean, I'm sure there's just so much that I'm missing and glossing over. Just reading the comments, like my boy Kellen is always giving me great feedback about what I could be doing to just kind of improve things or things to consider even. I mean, it's not like he's being a dickhead about it, but he's just giving me some genuinely good feedback about what I can do. So I'm keeping all of those things in mind, and also just wanting to open myself up to any more suggestions. So if you have any, again, put them in here and let's check out the apartment. And very quickly, before I forget, just wanted to mention that I might sneak in an extra painting in this video, because I'm noticing that I could use an extra painting in the video sometimes. Brothers, I am fucking tired once again. It's 1:30 once again, early or late once again, but the apartment, man, I've got it now. Let's see. It's late. Well, I think I already said that. Yeah. We're just going to do a very quick tour of the old bachelor pad, as it were. So, yeah, man. All right. We got fucking... I guess it's basically like a studio apartment, but it's just kind of segmented in like a really cool way. But, yeah, you got entrance. So you enter into the bedroom, right? So you walk in and bedroom. I don't know if whatever. You got bedroom, and then... bathroom, got a tub, dude. I'm hyped about that. I've had showers for most of my life. And then we got a little kitchen action over here. Double side though, dude. Check this out. We got one side over here with shelves, and then another. Fuck yeah. It's gonna be good. Cooking stuff. Got a refrigerator. And then this is, I guess, like the living room area. Got my little table here and stuff. And bro, check the windows. We've got windows, and they look outside. What's cool about the window is that you can't really see it from here, but there's a tree. There's a tree on the other side. So it just kind of looks like it makes it look like I'm in like a nature setting as opposed to right next to a lumberyard, which is really nice. But yeah, man. Okay, so that's the apartment. This little difficult chapter of unhousedlessness is at an end. It was a fun adventure. I made the best of it. I can say that with 100% confidence. I definitely made the best of it. But boy, am I ready and excited to have headquarters. God damn it, it's gonna be good. So yeah, all right. From here, we're gonna get into some painting now. Like I said, I'm pulling from the old archives, and it's gonna be, like I mentioned, the large emoji. So without further ado, let's go. Pretty much every painting starts off the same background. I put it in the spray booth, or not every painting rather, but every painting like this starts the same. I put it in the spray booth and I hit the background with several layers. I tilt it so that I get a pattern diagonally and horizontally, which just helps with coverage. Whoa, busted. Projectorino, tool of convenience or cop out, you tell me. I'm using masking tape here, or rather painter's tape, to mask off the circumference of each one of the features, and using things like plastic bags, just leftover scraps of plastic or canvas, anything I can find really to mask off everything around the features that I'm going to be painting. And this is basically so that I don't get any overspray onto my clean yellow surface, because I'm going to be using an airbrush, and the last thing I want is for my fine little bits of spray to go and stain everything on the yellow. And the thing about yellow paint is that it's very hard, it's very transparent, you know, so if you get a stain on there, you've got to cover it several times. One neat trick though that you can use is, if you're painting on yellow, paint it white first, cover the stain that you're doing, and then hit it with yellow. This is just basically what it looks like before I start the actual painting. We've got plastic covering as much as possible and then tape covering the rest. These are the colors that I'm using specifically for the eyes. So there's about maybe 8 colors, and they all represent different parts of the eye. And of course we've got the airbrush and my Home Depot bucket that I use to dump and clean in between colors. So getting started here with the first eye, I'm working as I would with an oil painting, working from dark to light, which technically is the opposite of how you want to be working with an airbrush. You kind of want to be working from light to dark, sort of like you would watercolor. And for the airbrush specifically, this is because there's something called like a blue shift phenomenon, which I learned about through an artist named Drew Blair, and he's sort of like the airbrush king. But basically what happens is, if you spray a darker color over a lighter one, the lighter color creates a sort of bluish shift in the hue over the darker one. And you can kind of really see it, especially here. I'm kind of painting this sort of pinkish white, and it's really going on as a kind of blue. And you see it in the red too, this very subtle but visible kind of blue shift. When you see me working in reverse, everything is going to look very saturated and crisp and bright. Testing, I like using the outer perimeter of the space that I'm painting to just test little bits of the airbrush and make sure that I'm getting a good flow of paint before I start touching my actual surface. Because sometimes, man, it can be finicky and you'll just get a big burst of paint and can potentially ruin your workflow and, you know, the area that you're working on. Here I'm just using the fine tip of the brush to add a bunch of little details to the eye. I don't know anatomically what this part is called, but I should. That's a big L on my part for not knowing basic anatomy. But here I'm also working light over the dark, and then you can see here that I'm actually going back with darker colors and adding some more detail and separations between all those little lines. Here again, just continuing to refine. Now I've slowed the video down here a little bit to give you a real-time idea of what it looks like when you're trying to just basically function with an airbrush, especially one with as fine of a nozzle as this. As you can see, I'm not able to get just an even flow of paint, and I'm having to constantly scrape the needle, which gets dry via just basically, like, it gets dry because you're spraying air over the needle, which is catching paint on it, and then the paint itself is just the air itself is drying the paint on the needle, so you're constantly having to remove little bits of paint. And here I've taken the time to give the airbrush a quick cleanup, and now I'm hitting the other side of the eye with the same kind of line work, just working all of these little veins inside of the eye, but you can still see that I'm struggling, man. And the thing with these, you know, kind of little details, you don't want to be, you know, you don't want to get hung up on precision. You just kind of want to be a little bit more chaotic. You can see the shapes of the veins, they're not straight, you know, they're kind of weird, and you can see basically by like the motions of my hand that I'm not keeping a very ordered approach. I'm just basically flowing and allowing things to kind of be chaotic, which is how you would find them in nature. And we're just, you know, we're covering different parts of the eye and just hitting it with little veins here and there. Starting to build up these little details is honestly my favorite part of these things. So much funner, obviously, than, like, you know, building the base layers and stuff. It's all very important though, you know, it's all very important, and it's a good idea to get as specific or as accurate with every stage. Here I think I kind of clumped up a little bit too much paint, but not to worry. I'm just going to go ahead and make it worse by painting more over it. No big deal. Actually, it ended up working really well because in nature, obviously, like I said, not everything is going to be uniform, and that includes all of the width of the lines, not just the shapes, you know. So you're going to have some veins that are closer to the surface of the eye and some that are a little bit more beneath, and you want to represent that, you know. And so the way to do that is to make them darker, bolder as they get closer to the surface, and blend more as they recede. It would be a similar thing as you would do in maybe a landscape painting, where if you were painting maybe buildings or trees or whatever, the further back things would recede, the kind of closer they would get to the value and color of the sky or whatever the ambient sort of background is at the moment. But typically what I've noticed is that the further things recede in the space, the more atmospheric they become, and the more they tend to blend in with the background. One of the really cool things about this airbrush specifically, which is an Iwata, I'm not sure the exact model, but if when I find it, I'll put it up here. The really cool thing about this airbrush is that it has a little locking mechanism so that you can actually set how much pull you want on your trigger, because basically when you're using an airbrush, the further back you pull the trigger, the more paint comes out. And if you're working really small details like this, you only want to be working with very little paint coming out. So that little twist mechanism, what it does is it locks it before it's able to go further back, and you can kind of choose the point, you can choose how far back you want it to go. And so I obviously set it really close to the front, and you can see my finger here just pulling, and I'm pulling as hard as I can, and only the set amount of paint is ever going to come out. So it gives me a little bit of freedom. But here at the bottom you can see that little burst, that was a spurt, and that was an accident. That was not something that I intended, and that's exactly why I use these outer perimeters to test. Because if that little blot had been on the surface of the eye, that would have meant, you know, an extra session of just cleanup after that. There is indeed a lot of scraping that goes on with these, and you can see again just those little spurts of paint coming out. Back to the time lapse here, I am working again with the darker color, going back in and adding some of those little separations. I have this little paper towel in my hand because what happens sometimes with the airbrush is moisture can get caught in the hose, and when that happens, it'll just shoot water randomly kind of out of the nozzle, and it won't necessarily affect your paint, but it'll just shoot water onto the surface. So it's nice to have a little rag to blot it up. And here I'm using my shield again for all of these little details. We got the reflection of the eye, or we got some reflection of light in the eye, as well as some highlights on the eyebrow, or of the eyelash coming over the eye. And then to finish off, I use some white with a brush, which gives it a lot of sharpness and really helps that specular highlight pop. The second eye had sort of a glitch effect, and you can see it a little bit in the computer screen, but I have my bottle of spray. There we go. You can see the eye. It's kind of, what I did was like a very glitched out kind of effect in Photoshop, and now I'm painting it. So what this entails essentially is just repeating the same pattern over and over. So that's just one eye stacked on its stacked over itself, copy pasted over and over and over. So I'm just basically doing what I did with the left side and then repeating it on the right, but just stacked. And the colors are exactly the same, because for these eyes what I did is I got one eye and then inverted it or mirrored it in Photoshop and used, you know, the left eye for the right as well. So all of my colors that have been pre-mixed are still able to be used here, which makes things very convenient. It's a little bit harder, you know, when you have different lighting conditions on each, and you know, this is just one little way that you can keep keep yourself sane, man, when you're working with so much detail and stuff. The shield comes in very handy with these, especially when you have edges like this that are supposed to be sharp where they separate. It's so much more convenient than, let's say, using tape, because tape you'd have to be constantly peeling back and reapplying, and you have to make sure that every time if you have to remask an area, you have to make sure that the tape is on the contour just perfectly. Whereas with the shield, you have the flexibility of all of the different little angles and stuff and the different curvatures, so it's very nice. And again, using it for the same reflection. With this one, I had less opportunity to put in all those little lines and stuff, which, hey, I'm not complaining, man. Shit, that was a lot of work. Again, working from light to dark towards the end, using the lightest values in the beginning, and then working towards darker ones in the end. But of course I started the same as the other one, working from light to dark and then back in reverse. And I'm using again a brush for some specular highlights. Working the teeth, the mouth. This was the second set of teeth I've ever painted. The first being in the... Actually, the lips one had some teeth, and the Brendan Fraser one kind of had teeth, but not really. But this one, the teeth are very high res and very prominent. So this was a very fun one. And color's a very strange thing, going on. You see, like, this is kind of like a pale blue when you would expect, white or yellow or something like that for the teeth. But it's a very interesting thing, the way color works. What I like to use to sample color and be very exact is Photoshop. So I'll use the eyedropper tool, or I think it's the color sampling tool. I forgot what exactly the tool is called, but it's basically the little eyedropper, and I'll use that to... Oh, getting a text message. Gotta turn that off. I just make sure that dang, that kind of threw me off. Man, I legit forgot what I was saying. God damn it. Anyway, I'm going to be working the same way as I did the eyes. I'm working from dark to light, just as I would in Photoshop, and then going backwards from light to dark. And there is the motherfucking text message again. We're going to ignore it this time. I went over and I actually made a slight glaze of a little bit more yellow, because there's a lot of color shift in these teeth, and you can really see it now that I'm starting to build color. You can see all of these little shifts in hue from blue to yellow, and then towards the gums it starts to get a little pinker. And this is just all a process of slowly building layers and transparencies. And again, I'm using my shield, very helpful, especially in this part, to get all of these little details in the teeth. There's all these little crevices, little cracks and things like that. The photo was taken very close up, obviously, and unlike the Brendan Fraser painting that was very kind of blurred or low res, this one is the opposite. It's very high resolution, so I'm taking great care to work as many details as I can. And here, giving you again a real-time look, I'm working the perimeter of the gums, and that I'm just adding a slightly darker tone here to communicate the curvature that's happening from the gums into the teeth. I'll also be including another link in the description to this shield so you can get it, but it's also in the previous video. And here, now that I'm stepping away a little bit and sitting back, you can see how nice and sharp the teeth are starting to look, especially working the highlights. Motherfucker hasn't brushed in years, bro. I'm gonna talk though, shit. And then here we're working the little highlights of the gums, which is very fun, because it's you're actually working just that very close-up kind of, I don't know, organ texture, or like it's just like a very weird texture. Again, working from dark to light, and on the top of the gums you can see that kind of blue shift again, but I'm going to go back and you'll see how I'll correct it. And you can see now with the teeth, you know, going back into the inside of the mouth, hitting it with a darker tone, it really starts to sharpen up. And it's not necessary that the last layer has to be the darkest color. Sometimes it's advantageous to have have a little bit of that blue shift for the overall kind of effect of having a pure light portion on top. Here you can see I used some masking tape to get an actual area in between the teeth, which is actually a good, you know, thing that I forgot that I did. So if you ever need to, man, like that's one thing that is important to remember. Just use every single tool that you have at your disposal. You know, don't be like, not everything has to be only the shield or only tape. It's important to be flexible and just use whatever you have on hand at your disposal to get the job done. Now again, we're doing some vein work here around the top of the gums. Motherfucker probably has gingivitis. That's why they're inflamed and veiny. I'm just kidding, man. I'm pretty sure everybody's got veins up there, but I think if you do have the old gingivitis, I think it's probably worse off. I'm using a little bit of the vein color to help with some of the dark areas in the gums as well. Testing, just some more tests on the outside, making sure that we don't get any accidents, because it does happen and it is very frustrating and it does take a long time to correct. And if you look over at the reference, you know, we're looking pretty good. Of course, the reference looks a little bit more exposed or overexposed because it's got the backlit quality of the screen, and then the camera itself is trying to adjust and compensate. But otherwise, you know, you can see we've got things pretty close. Here with a little bit of a reveal. Actually looks pretty goddamn good. Pretty excited about that. I'm using here some masking tape now to add the last part of this piece, which is going to be the tears. It's kind of like a crying emoji. And I'm just using the weight of the roll of tape to make sure that the line goes straight down. You know, there's no need to get overly fucking, you know, you don't gotta think about it too much, man. Just you do what works. Oh, pretty cool, man. Actually, the text messages I was getting is Hannah, and she's telling me that the YouTube videos are fucking fire. I like, hell yeah, man. Thank you, Hanny. Appreciate that shit. All right, getting done with the tape here, walking away. What do we got next? So here, I'm using a trick that I learned from another artist named Michael Reeder. And what he does is he uses either a transparency or the same color of paint as the background to line the edges of the tape, so that if you bleed through with the next color, it's not gonna happen, you know? And so basically this just prevents any bleeding, because any bleeding that would happen would be the same color as the thing that we used. And so you get a nice sharp line. And here, for the tape peel, you're gonna see exactly how it worked. Well, bam, look at that shit, bro. I got damn. Once more, let's do it again. Man, that's when those Crocs were new, bro. Look at those Crocs, they're brand motherfucking new. Right now they look like shit on my feet, dude. They're worn out. I wear these things out quick, man. I wear them all day, every day. I need a Croc sponsorship, to be honest. Man, look how clean that is, bro. Look how clean that is. Look at the eyes. Look at the teeth. Woo! You did it, baby. Hell fucking yeah. Cue the B-roll. Cue the B-roll. Yeah, dude, I hope that you like the new commentary, what do they call it, picture in picture. I think I like it. I like doing that. I'm gonna keep doing it more. I think it makes it more informative, etc., etc. I don't have anything else to say. It was a good painting. I'm excited for the next one, for the next video. And I did not forget about the extra painting that I was gonna fucking show you guys, goddammit. So I'm gonna cue that now and then leave you with that. And we'll see you next time.